The rain had been falling for hours, each droplet cascading from the heavens with a vengeance, as if intent on washing away the sins of the city. Lucas Lawson hunched his broad shoulders against the downpour, his worn denim jacket offering minimal protection as he cradled his sleeping 6-year-old daughter Emma against his chest. He had sacrificed his only umbrella to create a makeshift canopy over her small frame, leaving himself exposed to the elements. "Just a few more blocks, sweetheart," he whispered, though Emma couldn't hear him through her peaceful slumber. Her tiny hand clutched the collar of his soaked shirt, her face nestled against his neck, warm breath a stark contrast to the chill that had settled into his bones. Lucas trudged forward, his boots splashing through puddles that reflected the blurred neon lights of downtown. The bus had broken down 3 miles back, and with no money for a cab, he had no choice but to walk the rest of the way home. His shoulders ached from carrying Emma, but he wouldn't wake her. Not after the exhausting day she'd had at the hospital getting tests for her asthma, another expense he couldn't afford but couldn't avoid. As he passed the gleaming glass facade of Richmond Enterprises, one of the city's most prestigious technology companies, Lucas didn't notice the sleek black Audi pulling up to the curb beside him. He was too focused on keeping Emma dry, on making sure his grip didn't falter despite his numbing fingers. "Excuse me," a woman's voice called out, barely audible over the pounding rain. Lucas turned, water streaming down his face, to find the car's passenger window rolled down. Behind it sat a woman with striking hazel eyes and chestnut hair pulled back in a professional bun. She looked at him with concern, her gaze shifting to Emma's sleeping form. "You're soaked through," she said, a frown creasing her brow. "Can I offer you a ride somewhere?" Lucas hesitated. Pride was a luxury he usually couldn't afford, but accepting help from strangers wasn't something he did lightly. "We're fine, thanks," he replied, his voice hoarse. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. "I don't mean to intrude, but it's pouring and you're carrying a sleeping child. Please, let me help." Before Lucas could respond, a particularly violent gust of wind ripped the makeshift umbrella from his grasp, sending it spiraling into the street. Emma stirred in his arms, a small whimper escaping her lips. "It's okay," he soothed, using his body to shield her from the rain that now fell directly on them. The car door opened, and the woman stepped out, completely disregarding the rain now soaking her expensive-looking suit. "Please," she said, not a question this time but a gentle command. "For your child's sake." Lucas looked down at Emma, her face scrunching in discomfort as raindrops began to hit her cheeks. He thought of the 20-minute walk still ahead, the cold that had already seeped into his clothes, the risk of Emma getting sick on top of her asthma. "Thank you," he finally conceded, moving toward the car. The woman nodded, relief crossing her features as she helped guide them into the back seat. The interior was warm and dry, the leather seats more comfortable than anything Lucas had sat on in years. Emma shifted in his arms, settling back into deep sleep as the door closed beside them. "I'm Lydia Richmond," the woman said, sliding back into the front passenger seat and turning to face them. "Where can my driver take you?" Lucas's eyes widened slightly as recognition dawned. "Richmond as in?" "Richmond Enterprises, yes," she confirmed with a small smile. "And you are?" "Lucas Lawson," he replied, suddenly very aware of his dripping clothes and the puddle forming beneath him on her immaculate car seat. "This is my daughter, Emma. We're heading to Oakwood Apartments on Westfield Street." Lydia nodded to her driver, who pulled smoothly away from the curb. Lucas noticed her gaze lingering on Emma, whose dark lashes rested against her pale cheeks, her breathing soft and even. "How old is she?" Lydia asked, her voice gentle. 6, Lucas answered, brushing a strand of damp hair from Emma's forehead. "Almost 7 next month." "She looks peaceful despite the weather," Lydia observed. "You must have been walking for some time." Lucas explained about the bus breaking down, about Emma's hospital appointment, carefully omitting the details of the medical bills piling up on his kitchen table at home. You carried her all that way? Lydia asked, genuine admiration in her voice. Lucas shrugged. She's my daughter. You do what you have to do. Something shifted in Lydia's expression then, a softness appearing behind the professional facade. Yes, I suppose you do. As the car wound its way through the rain-slicked streets, Lucas couldn't help but notice Lydia's occasional glances in the rearview mirror, her eyes meeting his with an unreadable expression. He attributed it to concern over her expensive upholstery, now dampened by his soaked clothing. The car eventually pulled up outside Lucas's apartment building, a tired-looking structure with peeling paint and a flickering entrance light. Lucas felt a twinge of embarrassment as he saw Lydia taking in the surroundings. "Thank you for the ride," he said quickly, preparing to exit with Emma still in his arms. "Wait," Lydia said, reaching into her purse. She pulled out a business card and handed it to him. "If you need anything, a ride or otherwise, please don't hesitate to call." Lucas stared at the card, unsure how to respond. Charity wasn't something he was comfortable accepting, but the sincerity in her eyes made him take it, tucking it carefully into his pocket. "I appreciate the offer," he said. "And the ride, you saved us from a miserable walk." Lydia nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "It was the least I could do. Take care of yourself, Mr. Lawson, and Emma." "Lucas," he corrected automatically. "Just Lucas is fine." "Lucas," she repeated, the name sounding somehow different in her refined tone. "Good night." As Lucas carried Emma up the 3 flights of stairs to their small apartment, he couldn't shake the image of Lydia Richmond's hazel eyes, the way they had looked at him not with pity, but with something that felt remarkably like respect. Once inside, he gently laid Emma on her bed, carefully changing her into dry pajamas without waking her fully. She stirred only slightly, mumbling something about rainbows before drifting back to sleep. Lucas pressed a kiss to her forehead, grateful that at least she had been spared the worst of the downpour. He changed into dry clothes himself, then sat at the small kitchen table, staring at the pile of bills illuminated by the single overhead light. Hospital invoices, rent notices, utility warnings, all demanding money he simply didn't have. Since losing his job at the construction company 6 months ago when they downsized, he had been piecing together income from whatever odd jobs he could find. It was enough to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table, but just barely. His fingers found the business card in his pocket, tracing the embossed letters of Lydia Richmond, CEO, Richmond Enterprises. In another life, he might have been intimidated by someone of her stature, but tonight he had seen something in her that transcended social boundaries, a simple human kindness that had touched him unexpectedly. He placed the card on the table beside the bills, telling himself he would never use it. Pride was sometimes all a man had left. The next morning brought clear skies and the usual rush to get Emma ready for school. Lucas made her favorite breakfast pancakes shaped like stars and helped her pack her backpack. "Dad, can I wear my yellow rain boots today?" Emma asked, her brown eyes wide with hope despite the sunshine streaming through the window. "It's not raining anymore, sweetheart," Lucas explained, kneeling to help her with her shoes. "How about your sneakers?" Emma's face fell slightly, "but I like splashing in puddles." Lucas smiled, ruffling her hair. "Tell you what, if it rains again this week, you can wear your rain boots and splash in every puddle we find. Deal, deal," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around his neck. They walked to Emma's school hand in hand, Lucas savoring these moments before heading to his first job of the day, helping an elderly neighbor fix her plumbing. It wasn't much, but Mrs. Henderson always paid him fairly and usually sent him home with homemade cookies for Emma. "Dad, who was that lady in the car last night?" Emma asked suddenly, skipping alongside him. Lucas glanced down in surprise. "You were awake," Emma nodded. "A little bit. She was pretty." Lucas felt a strange warmth in his cheeks. "Her name is Lydia. She was just being nice and giving us a ride because of the rain." "Like a rain angel?" Emma suggested, her imagination as vibrant as ever. Lucas laughed. I guess you could call her that. At the school gates, Lucas knelt to hug Emma goodbye. Have a good day, sweetheart, Mrs. Martinez will pick you up and take you to her place after school, okay? I'll come get you after work. Emma nodded solemnly. I know, Dad. I'll be good. Lucas watched her skip into the building, her pink backpack bouncing with each step, before heading to Mrs. Henderson's apartment. The day passed in a blur of work fixing Mrs. Henderson's sink, helping at a construction site for a few hours, delivering packages for a local courier service. By evening, Lucas was exhausted, his hands calloused and sore, but he had earned enough to cover groceries for the week. It was a small victory. He picked Emma up from their neighbor's apartment, thanking Mrs. Martinez for watching her, as he did every day. Emma chatted excitedly about school as they walked home, her small hand warm in his. And then Tyler said frogs can breathe through their skin, but I didn't believe him, so Miss Perkins showed us a video, and it's true, Dad. Can you believe it? Through their skin? Lucas smiled, cherishing her enthusiasm. That's pretty amazing, Em. As they turned onto their street, Lucas noticed a sleek black car parked outside their apartment building. His steps faltered as he recognized it from the previous night. Emma followed his gaze and gasped. Dad, it's the Rain Angel. Sure enough, Lydia Richmond stood beside the car, now dressed in a more casual but equally expensive-looking outfit, dark jeans and a cream-colored blouse. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, transforming her appearance from corporate executive to something more approachable. She spotted them and offered a tentative wave. Lucas hesitated, confused by her presence, but Emma was already pulling him forward. Hi, Rain Angel, Emma called out, making Lydia laugh in surprise. Rain Angel, she repeated, her eyes meeting Lucas's with amusement. Lucas shrugged, embarrassed. You gave us a ride in the rain. In Emma's world, that apparently qualifies you for angel status. I'm flattered, Lydia said, crouching to Emma's level. You must be Emma, I'm Lydia. I know, Emma replied with the directness of childhood. Dad told me, why are you here? Is it going to rain again? Lydia stood, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Actually, I realized after I dropped you off last night that your umbrella got lost because of me. I wanted to replace it. She held out a package, a high-quality umbrella with a pattern of colorful frogs on it. Emma's eyes widened. Frogs, Dad, look, it has frogs, just like the ones at school today. Lucas was stunned by the gesture, especially since the umbrella was clearly worth 10 times what their old one had been. You didn't need to do that. I wanted to, Lydia said simply. Besides, I had a meeting nearby and thought. Well, I wanted to make sure you both got home all right yesterday. There was something in her voice, a hint of uncertainty that seemed at odds with her confident appearance. Lucas found himself softening. That's very thoughtful. Thank you. Emma was already opening the umbrella, despite the clear sky above. Look, Dad, it's so big we can all fit, Lydia laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face. That was the idea. Lucas hesitated, then made a decision. Would you like to come up for a cup of coffee? It's not fancy, but it's the least I can offer after your kindness. Surprise flickered across Lydia's features, followed by a warm smile. I'd like that very much. Their apartment, though small and modestly furnished, was meticulously clean. Lucas had always taken pride in making their space comfortable, despite their limited means. Still, he felt self-conscious as Lydia stepped inside, acutely aware of the contrast between their worlds. Emma immediately took charge, showing Lydia her drawings on the refrigerator and her small collection of books with the enthusiasm only a child could muster. Lydia listened attentively, asking questions and responding with genuine interest that endeared her to Emma instantly. Lucas busied himself making coffee, watching the interaction from the kitchen with a mixture of amazement and caution. It had been just him and Emma for so long, since his wife, Sarah, had passed away from complications during childbirth. He had learned to be protective, to keep their small world secure. Yet there was something about Lydia that didn't feel threatening. She sat cross-legged on the floor with Emma, admiring a science project about the solar system, her expensive clothes gathering dust without a hint of concern on her part. "Coffee's ready," Lucas announced, bringing 2 mugs to the living room. "Emma, how about some juice for you?" "Yes, please," Emma replied, already pulling out more drawings to show Lydia. Over coffee, the conversation flowed more naturally than Lucas had expected. He learned that Lydia had taken over Richmond Enterprises from her father 3 years ago, transforming it from a traditional software company to a leader in educational technology. "We're developing programs to make learning more accessible," she explained, a passionate light in her eyes. "Especially for children with different learning needs." "That's impressive," Lucas said, meaning it. "Education made such a difference for me. I was the first in my family to go to college, though I never finished my degree." "What were you studying?" Lydia asked. "Architectural engineering," Lucas replied, feeling a distant pang for the dreams he'd once held. "Then life happened. I got a good job in construction, met my wife, Sarah, and, well, priorities shifted." A shadow crossed his face, and Lydia seemed to sense the weight behind his words. "Emma's mother?" she asked gently. Lucas nodded, glancing at Emma, who was now coloring contentedly at the coffee table. "She passed away when Emma was born. It's been just us ever since." Compassion filled Lydia's eyes, but not pity, a distinction Lucas appreciated more than she could know. "You've done an amazing job with her. She's wonderful." "She's everything," Lucas said simply. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, and before they realized it, an hour had passed. Lydia glanced at her watch reluctantly. "I should probably get going. I have an early meeting tomorrow." Emma looked up from her coloring. "Will you come back, Rain Angel?" Lucas started to intervene, not wanting Emma to impose, but Lydia smiled warmly. "If it's all right with your dad, I'd love to." Both pairs of eyes turned to Lucas, who found himself nodding before he could overthink it. "Of course." "You're welcome anytime." As Lucas walked Lydia to her car, a comfortable silence settled between them. At the curb, she turned to face him, the street lamp casting a soft glow over her features. "Thank you for the coffee," she said. "And the company?" "Thank you for the umbrella," Lucas replied. "Though I think you may have created a frog enthusiast, I foresee many puddle-jumping expeditions in my future." Lydia laughed, the sound clear in the evening air. "I'll take full responsibility." She paused, seeming to debate something internally. "Lucas, I have tickets to the Natural History Museum this weekend. They have a new exhibit on rainforest creatures, including frogs. I thought maybe Emma might enjoy it. And you, of course." Lucas was taken aback by the invitation. "That's very kind, but it's not charity," Lydia said quickly, reading his hesitation correctly. "My company sponsors the exhibit, and I have tickets I need to use. It would actually be helping me out." Lucas knew it wasn't entirely true, but he appreciated her effort to preserve his dignity. More importantly, Emma would love it. "In that case, we accept. Thank you." Lydia's smile brightened. "Great. Saturday at 10, I can pick you up." After she drove away, Lucas returned to the apartment where Emma was waiting eagerly. "Is the Rain Angel coming back?" she asked immediately. Lucas picked her up, swinging her around as she giggled. "Even better. We're going to see real frogs at the museum this weekend." Emma's squeal of delight was enough to quiet the voice in the back of his mind, warning him to be careful, reminding him that women like Lydia Richmond didn't typically become involved with struggling single fathers from the wrong side of town. For tonight, at least, he would allow himself and Emma this unexpected happiness. The next few days passed in a routine blur, though Emma's excitement about the museum trip grew with each passing day. Lucas found himself thinking about Lydia more often than he cared to admit, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, the gentle way she had spoken with Emma, the absence of judgment in her gaze when she saw their modest apartment. Saturday morning arrived with brilliant sunshine. Lucas helped Emma dress in her favorite outfit, a denim jumper with a yellow t-shirt, and made sure her hair was neatly braided. He was more careful than usual with his own appearance, selecting his least worn jeans and a blue button-down shirt that Sarah had always said brought out his eyes. "You look handsome, Dad," Emma declared, studying him critically. Lucas laughed, ruffling her hair. "And you look beautiful, kiddo, ready for frogs." Emma bounced on her toes. "And snakes and butterflies and all the animals." Precisely at 10, there was a knock at their door. Lucas opened it to find Lydia standing there in fitted jeans and an emerald green blouse that complemented her hazel eyes. Her hair was pulled into a casual ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup, looking younger and more relaxed than he had seen her before. "Good morning," she said, her smile warm. "Rain angel," Emma exclaimed, rushing forward for a hug that caught Lydia by surprise but clearly pleased her. "Good morning, Emma," Lydia said, returning the hug. "Are you ready to see some amazing creatures?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Dad says they have poison dart frogs that are bright blue and yellow." "They do," Lydia confirmed, "and so much more." The museum was crowded, but Lydia guided them past the main line to a special entrance where she was greeted by name. The staff member handed them special passes that allowed access to all exhibits. "Perks of sponsorship," Lydia explained with a wink to Lucas. Emma was in heaven, moving from exhibit to exhibit with boundless energy. Lucas loved watching her fascination with every new discovery, but he found his attention increasingly drawn to Lydia. She engaged with Emma at eye level, answering questions patiently and sharing in her excitement. There was no condescension, no forced enthusiasm, just genuine connection. At the rainforest exhibit, a museum guide offered to take Emma into a special area where children could hold safe species of frogs under supervision. Lucas hesitated, his protective instincts kicking in. "It's completely safe," the guide assured him. "Parents can watch through the glass wall." "Please, Dad," Emma pleaded, her eyes wide. "I've been here before," Lydia added gently. "The program is excellent. She'll love it." Lucas nodded, and Emma followed the guide, practically vibrating with excitement. He and Lydia stood at the glass wall, watching as Emma was given a tiny tree frog to hold in her cupped hands, her face a picture of wonder. "Thank you for this," Lucas said quietly. "I haven't seen her this happy in a long time." Lydia turned to him, her expression soft. "She's an amazing child. So curious and open to the world." "She's the best of her mother," Lucas said, a hint of melancholy in his voice. "Sarah was like that, saw wonder in everything." Lydia hesitated, then asked, "Would you tell me about her, about Sarah, if it's not too painful?" No one had asked Lucas about Sarah in years. People tended to avoid the subject, unsure how to navigate his grief. But Lydia's question felt right somehow, respectful of Sarah's importance rather than an intrusion. As they watched Emma move from station to station in the children's area, Lucas shared the story of meeting Sarah in college, of their whirlwind romance and simple wedding, of her dream to become an elementary school teacher and her joy when they discovered she was pregnant. "She had a heart condition that was manageable until the pregnancy," Lucas explained, his voice low. "The doctors warned us about the risks, but Sarah, she wanted our baby so much, she made me promise that if anything happened, I would choose Emma." Lydia's hand found his, a gentle pressure that anchored him to the present. "She sounds incredible." "She was," Lucas agreed. "And somehow, even though Emma never knew her, she has so much of Sarah in her." "That's a beautiful gift," Lydia said softly. Lucas looked down at their joined hands, surprised by how natural it felt. "It is." The moment was broken by Emma bounding out of the children's area, her face alight with excitement. Dad, I held 5 different frogs and a lizard, and the lady said I'm a natural animal handler." Lucas laughed, lifting her into his arms. "That's amazing, Em. Did you thank the guide?" Emma nodded. "I said thank you 3 times. Can we see the butterflies next?" The rest of the day passed in a blur of exhibits, lunch at the museum cafe, and more animals than Lucas could count. By late afternoon, Emma's energy was finally flagging, her steps slowing as they exited the planetarium show. "I think someone's ready for home," Lucas observed, noticing Emma's drooping eyelids. I'm not tired, Emma protested, even as she yawned widely. Lydia smiled, kneeling to Emma's level. You know what? I'm pretty tired myself. All this learning and exploring takes a lot of energy. Emma considered this, then nodded sagely. I guess we could go home, but can we come back sometime? We didn't see everything. There's always more to discover, Lydia agreed. That's what makes museums magical. On the drive back to the apartment, Emma fell asleep in the backseat, clutching the stuffed poison dart frog Lydia had bought her from the gift shop despite Lucas's protests. You're spoiling her, Lucas had said. Just a little, Lydia had replied with a smile that made it impossible to argue further. Now, with Emma asleep, a comfortable silence filled the car. Lucas found himself studying Lydia's profile as she gazed out the window, the afternoon sun highlighting the delicate curve of her cheek, the slight upturn of her lips. Penny for your thoughts, she asked suddenly, turning to catch him watching her. Lucas felt heat rise in his cheeks but didn't look away. I was just thinking that this is the best day Emma's had in a long time. Thank you for that. I enjoyed it just as much, Lydia replied. It's been refreshing to spend time with you both. My life can be very structured, very predictable. Corporate life not all it's cracked up to be? Lucas asked with a small smile. Lydia's laugh was soft, mindful of the sleeping child. Let's just say that board meetings and quarterly reports don't compare to seeing a child's face light up when she holds a frog for the first time. When they arrived at the apartment, Lucas carefully lifted Emma from the car seat, her head lolling against his shoulder. Lydia walked with them to the door, opening it so Lucas could carry Emma inside without disturbing her. I'll put her down for a nap, Lucas whispered. Make yourself comfortable. When he returned to the living room, Lydia was examining the few photos on the bookshelf Emma as a baby, Lucas holding her at the beach, and one faded photograph of Sarah, her smile radiant as she cradled her pregnant belly. She was beautiful, Lydia said softly. Yes, she was, Lucas agreed, no longer feeling the sharp pain that usually accompanied memories of Sarah, but rather a gentle warmth. Thank you for sharing your day with me, Lydia said, turning to face him. Both of you. Thank you for inviting us, Lucas replied, suddenly very aware of how close they were standing. It meant a lot. Something shifted in the air between them, a tension that hadn't been there before. Lucas found his gaze dropping to Lydia's lips, a dangerous thought crossing his mind before he quickly stepped back, clearing his throat. Can I offer you some coffee or water? He asked, needing the distraction. Lydia shook her head, a flicker of something disappointment, crossing her features. I should probably get going. I have some work to catch up on before Monday. Lucas nodded, walking her to the door. At the threshold, Lydia paused, turning back to him. Lucas, She began, then seemed to reconsider. I really enjoyed today. So did we, he replied, feeling there was more she wanted to say but not pushing. Good night, Lydia. After she left, Lucas sat on the couch, his mind replaying moments from the day: Emma's delight, Lydia's laughter, the brief touch of their hands. It had been years since he had allowed himself to think of another woman in anything but the most casual terms. His life had been focused entirely on Emma, on survival. But now, unexpected feelings stirred within him, feelings he wasn't sure he was ready for, or even had the right to explore. Lydia Richmond lived in a world so different from his own. What could he possibly offer someone like her? He was pulled from his thoughts by a soft "Dad" from the hallway. Emma stood there, rubbing her eyes. Hey, sleepyhead, he said, opening his arms for her to climb into his lap. Have a good nap, she nodded against his chest. Where's Lydia? She had to go home, Lucas explained, smoothing Emma's hair. Emma was quiet for a moment, then asked, Do you like her, Dad? Lucas was caught off guard by the directness of the question. Of course I like her, she's very nice. Emma pulled back to look at him seriously. No, I mean, do you like her, like in my books when the prince likes the princess? Lucas couldn't help but laugh at her earnestness. It's complicated, Em. Why? She makes you smile. You haven't smiled like that in forever. Out of the mouths of babes, Lucas thought wryly. Sometimes adults need time to figure things out, but yes, I do like Lydia. She's special. Emma seemed satisfied with this answer, snuggling back against him. I like her too. She knows about frogs and doesn't mind when I ask lots of questions. That is pretty amazing, Lucas agreed, dropping a kiss on the top of her head. Can she come over again? Emma asked hopefully. Lucas thought about the way Lydia had looked at him before she left, the unspoken words hanging between them. I hope so, Em, I really do. The following week brought unseasonable rain again, persistent and heavy. Lucas hadn't heard from Lydia since the museum trip, and while he had considered calling the number on her business card, he couldn't bring himself to do it. What would he say? Thank you again. I can't stop thinking about you. Both felt inadequate and presumptuous. On Wednesday afternoon, Lucas was working on a renovation project for a local cafe when his phone rang. The childcare center at Emma's school appeared on the screen, sending immediate alarm through him. Mr. Lawson, this is Miss Jenkins from Oakwood Elementary, the voice said when he answered. Emma's having some difficulty with her asthma. It's not severe enough for an ambulance, but we do think she should be picked up. I'll be right there, Lucas said, already putting down his tools and explaining the situation to his employer, who waved him off with understanding. The rain was coming down in sheets as Lucas jogged the 15 blocks to Emma's school, having no money for a taxi and no time to wait for a bus. By the time he reached the school office, he was soaked through, water dripping from his hair and clothes. Emma sat on a chair in the nurse's office, her breathing audibly wheezy but not dangerously so. She brightened when she saw him, though concern filled her eyes. Dad, you're all wet again, she said between slightly labored breaths. Don't worry about me, Lucas said, kneeling beside her. How are you feeling, kiddo? The school nurse explained that Emma's class had been briefly outside between buildings when the rain intensified suddenly, and the dampness seemed to have triggered her asthma. She'd already used her rescue inhaler, which had helped, but she needed rest. She should be fine with monitoring at home, the nurse concluded, but keep her inhaler handy. Lucas nodded, gathering Emma's belongings. Come on, sweetheart, let's get you home. He looked outside at the continuing downpour, considering his options. They could wait it out, but Emma needed to get home to rest. He could try to find money for a taxi somewhere, but his wallet was painfully empty after purchasing Emma's medication refill yesterday. Decision made, he crouched down. Hop on, Em, piggyback ride. Emma climbed onto his back, her arms around his neck. Like when we were in the rain before, when we met the rain angel? Exactly like that, Lucas confirmed, standing carefully. Emma was light for her age, but the walk home was nearly 20 blocks. Still, he had no other choice. They had made it about 5 blocks, Lucas trudging through the rain with Emma secured on his back, when a now familiar black car pulled alongside them, the passenger window rolling down to reveal Lydia's concerned face. Lucas? Emma, she called out, eyes widening as she took in their situation. Lucas stopped, relief washing over him despite his pride. Lydia, what are you doing in this part of town? I was visiting one of our school program sites, she explained quickly, already opening her door. What happened? Is Emma okay? Asthma flare-up at school, Lucas explained as Lydia ushered them toward the car. Nothing serious, but she needs to rest. My chest feels tight, Emma added as Lucas carefully set her in the backseat, but Dad came to get me. Of course he did, Lydia said, her eyes meeting Lucas's with something like admiration. Your dad is pretty amazing like that. The driver, whom Lucas recognized from their first encounter, already knew their address and headed there without needing instructions. In the car, Lydia offered Emma a bottle of water from the console and spoke to her in soothing tones while Lucas caught his breath, water still dripping from his clothes. You're creating puddles in fancy cars again, Lydia observed with a gentle smile. Lucas ran a hand through his wet hair, sending droplets flying. It's becoming a habit, I'm sorry. Don't be, Lydia replied, her voice soft. I'm just glad I was in the right place at the right time. Again. At the apartment, Lydia insisted on coming up with them. You'll need help, she said when Lucas began to protest. And I want to make sure Emma's okay. Once inside, Lucas helped Emma change into dry clothes and settled her on the couch with her favorite blanket and stuffed animals, including the new frog from the museum. Her breathing was easier now, but still not entirely normal. I'm going to change quickly, Lucas told Lydia. Would you mind keeping an eye on her for a moment? Lydia was already sitting beside Emma, helping her arrange her stuffed animals. Of course, take your time. When Lucas returned in dry clothes, he found Lydia reading one of Emma's books to her, doing different voices for each character that had Emma giggling despite her discomfort. The scene was so domestic, so natural, that it made his heart ache with unexpected longing. Feeling better, Em? He asked, coming to feel her forehead. No fever, which was a good sign. Emma nodded. Lydia does the best bear voice. I've been told I have many hidden talents, Lydia said with a wink that made Lucas's pulse quicken. Lucas prepared Emma's medication and some warm tea with honey, a remedy that had always soothed her breathing. Lydia helped without being asked, finding cups in the kitchen and washing the few dishes in the sink while Lucas focused on Emma. You don't have to do that, Lucas protested when he noticed. I want to help, Lydia replied simply. Let me. There was something in her tone that brooked no argument, a quiet determination that Lucas found himself respecting. This wasn't pity or charity, it was genuine care. After Emma had taken her medicine and drunk half her tea, her breathing had improved significantly. Her eyelids were growing heavy, the excitement and stress of the day catching up to her. I think someone needs a nap, Lucas observed. Not tired, Emma mumbled, even as she snuggled deeper into the couch cushions. Lucas exchanged an amused glance with Lydia, who seemed to understand the universal parent-child standoff over nap time. She reached for the blanket draped over the back of the couch and gently covered Emma with it. You know, Lydia said in a conspiratorial whisper to Emma, when I was little and didn't want to nap, my mom used to tell me that sleeping is how we recharge our adventure batteries. No adventures happen without enough sleep. Emma considered this seriously. I do like adventures. Exactly, Lydia continued. And the best adventurers know when to rest. To Lucas's amazement, Emma nodded and closed her eyes without further protest. Within minutes, her breathing had evened out into sleep, though still with a slight wheeze that Lucas knew would improve with rest. That was impressive, Lucas said quietly as they moved to the kitchen to avoid disturbing Emma. Usually, it takes at least 3 bedtime stories and a lengthy negotiation to get her to nap when she's not feeling well. Lydia smiled, a hint of nostalgia in her eyes. My mother used the same line on me. I was apparently a very stubborn child who never wanted to miss anything. I can't imagine, Lucas teased, earning a playful swat on the arm. He made coffee for them both, and they sat at the small kitchen table, the rain continuing to patter against the windows, creating a cozy backdrop to their conversation. Thank you, Lucas said after a comfortable silence. For the ride, for helping with Emma, for everything. Lydia met his gaze steadily. You know, most people wouldn't have walked miles in the pouring rain to pick up their child. They would have found another solution. Lucas shrugged. Emma needed me. There was no other solution. That's exactly my point, Lydia said, her voice soft but intense. You're an extraordinary father, Lucas. The way you care for her, the sacrifices you make without a second thought, it's remarkable. Lucas felt warmth spread through him at her words. Not many people had acknowledged his efforts as a single parent. It was expected that he would do whatever was needed for his child. Hearing Lydia voice her admiration meant more than he could express. After Sarah died, he found himself saying, I was terrified. I had this tiny baby depending entirely on me, and I had no idea what I was doing. But I made a promise to Sarah and to Emma that I would give her the best life I possibly could. You've kept that promise, Lydia said, her hand moving to cover his on the table. Anyone can see that. Lucas looked down at their hands, then back up to her face. Why are you here, Lydia? Really? You're a successful CEO with a company to run. Why spend your afternoon in a cramped apartment with a struggling single dad and his asthmatic 6-year-old? The question had been building inside him since that first rainy night. Women like Lydia didn't typically cross paths with men like him, let alone go out of their way to spend time with them. Lydia didn't pull her hand away as he'd half expected. Instead, her fingers tightened slightly around his. When I saw you that night in the rain, she began slowly, choosing her words with care, carrying Emma, completely soaked but focused entirely on keeping her dry and safe. Something shifted inside me. I've been surrounded by people my entire life who measure worth by bank accounts and social connections. But in that moment, I saw real strength, real character. She paused, a vulnerability in her eyes that Lucas hadn't seen before. I've built a successful company, yes. But my life outside of work has been empty, functional but not fulfilling. Being around you and Emma these past days has felt more real than anything I've experienced in years. Lucas absorbed her words, feeling the weight and sincerity behind them. I'm just a regular guy trying to do right by my daughter. There's nothing just about that, Lydia countered. And there's nothing regular about you, Lucas Lawson. The air between them charged with possibility, and Lucas found himself leaning forward slightly. Lydia met him halfway, her eyes holding his until the last moment when they fluttered closed. Their lips met in a kiss that was gentle at first, tentative, both of them testing unfamiliar waters. But as Lydia's hand moved to his cheek, the kiss deepened, becoming something more urgent, more honest. When they finally pulled apart, Lucas rested his forehead against hers, his heart racing. I wasn't expecting you, he whispered. Lydia's smile was radiant. I wasn't expecting you either. A small cough from the doorway broke the moment. They turned to find Emma standing there, her blanket clutched around her shoulders, a knowing smile on her face despite her still wheezy breathing. I knew you liked the rain, Angel, she announced triumphantly. Lucas laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. Come here, you little spy. Emma patted over, allowing herself to be lifted onto Lucas's lap. She looked at Lydia seriously. Does this mean you're going to be around more? Because I think Dad needs someone to make him smile when I'm at school. Lydia's laugh was bright and genuine. Is that what you think? Emma nodded solemnly. And I like having you here too. You're good at voices and you know about frogs. High praise indeed, Lydia said, her eyes meeting Lucas's over Emma's head, a silent question in them. Very high praise, Lucas agreed, his heart full as he looked at his daughter and this unexpected woman who had entered their lives like a force of nature. And I think Emma's right. We'd both like having you around more. Lydia's smile was answer enough. The weeks that followed brought a gradual but profound change to Lucas and Emma's lives. Lydia became a regular presence, joining them for dinner several nights a week, helping Emma with her science homework, and bringing a warmth to their small apartment that had been missing for too long. For Lucas, the relationship developed with a surprising ease. Lydia fit into their lives as if she had always belonged there, never trying to replace Sarah's memory, but creating her own space in their hearts. They took things slowly, both aware of Emma's feelings and the significant differences in their backgrounds. Those differences occasionally created friction. Lucas remained fiercely independent, refusing Lydia's offers of financial help even when unexpected expenses strained his budget. Lydia, accustomed to solving problems with resources, had to learn that his pride was not stubbornness, but a fundamental part of who he was, the man who carried his daughter through the rain rather than accepting defeat. One evening in late autumn, nearly 3 months after their first rain-soaked meeting, Lucas picked up Emma from school and found her unusually quiet. Everything okay, Em? He asked as they walked home, her small hand in his. Emma kicked at a pile of fallen leaves before answering. Tyler said Lydia only likes us because she feels sorry for us, because we don't have a lot of money and stuff. Lucas stopped walking, kneeling down to Emma's level. Did that upset you? Emma nodded, her bottom lip trembling slightly. Is it true? Does she feel sorry for us? Lucas considered his answer carefully, knowing the importance of honesty with his daughter. No, Emma, that's not true. Lydia cares about us because of who we are, not what we have or don't have. Some people think money is what makes people important, but that's not true. What matters is how we treat others, how hard we work, how much we love. Like how you carry me when I'm sick or tired, Emma asked, her young mind making connections in that remarkable way children do. Exactly, Lucas confirmed. Lydia saw that I would do anything for you, and that meant something to her. And she saw how smart and kind you are, and that meant something too. Emma thought about this, then nodded, apparently satisfied. I think she loves us, Dad. Lucas felt his heart skip a beat. Why do you think that? Because she looks at us the way you look at me, Emma said simply. Like we're the most important thing ever. That evening, Lucas shared Emma's observations with Lydia as they sat on the small balcony of his apartment after Emma had gone to bed. The night was cool but clear, the city lights spread out below them like earthbound stars. Out of the mouths of babes, Lydia said softly after hearing about Emma's conversation with her classmate. She's remarkably perceptive. She is, Lucas agreed, watching Lydia's profile in the dim light. Was she right? About how you look at us? Lydia turned to face him, her expression open and vulnerable in a way he had come to treasure. In the corporate world, she wore armor, competence, and confidence that kept others at a distance. But here, with him, she allowed herself to be seen. Yes, she admitted simply. She was right. Lucas took her hand, intertwining their fingers. I never expected this, you know. After Sarah died, I thought that part of my life was over. Emma became my whole world. And now? Lydia asked, a hint of uncertainty in her voice despite her usual confidence. Now my world is expanding in ways I never thought possible, Lucas said. I love you, Lydia. I think I have since that first night in the rain. Lydia's smile was luminous in the darkness. I love you too, both of you. More than I knew I was capable of. Their kiss was a promise, sweet and certain under the watchful stars. When they separated, Lydia rested her head on Lucas's shoulder, their hands still joined. I have something to tell you, she said after a comfortable silence. I've been thinking about making some changes. What kind of changes? Lucas asked, curious at her serious tone. I've been working 80-hour weeks for years, Lydia explained. Building the company, proving myself, but lately I've been questioning what it's all for. The company is stable, my leadership team is strong. I'm considering stepping back from day-to-day operations, not leaving entirely but taking a more strategic role. Lucas was surprised. That's a big decision. Are you sure? Lydia nodded against his shoulder. Being with you and Emma has reminded me what really matters. I want more of this, more evenings watching the stars, more weekends at the museum, more bedtime stories. I want a life, not just a career. I don't want you to give up something you've worked so hard for, Lucas said, though his heart leapt at the thought of more time with her. I'm not giving up anything, Lydia corrected gently. I'm gaining everything that matters. 2 weeks later, Lucas stood in his living room watching as Emma carefully arranged and rearranged the table settings for dinner. Lydia was coming over, and Emma had insisted on making it special. Do you think she'll like the paper flowers I made? Emma asked, adjusting the colorful origami creations she had crafted at school. She'll love them, Lucas assured her, marveling at how his daughter had blossomed in recent months. Her asthma was better controlled, her confidence had grown, and her smile came more readily than ever before. When the doorbell rang, Emma raced to answer it, throwing the door open to reveal Lydia standing there with a small gift bag in hand. I brought something for our dinner, Lydia said after accepting Emma's enthusiastic hug. She handed the bag to Emma, who peered inside and gasped. Dad, look. It's special cups for our milk. They have frogs on them, Lucas laughed, embracing Lydia in greeting. You're feeding her frog obsession, he murmured against her ear. Guilty as charged, Lydia replied with a grin. Dinner was a lively affair, with Emma dominating the conversation, telling Lydia about her day at school in exquisite detail. Lucas watched them together, his heart full at the easy affection between them. After Emma had been tucked into bed with promises of pancakes in the morning, Lucas and Lydia settled on the couch, her head on his chest, his arm around her shoulders. I have news, Lydia said, looking up at him. The board approved my proposal. Starting next month, I'll be working 3 days a week in the office, focusing on strategy and new initiatives. The rest of the time, I'm free. That's wonderful, Lucas said, genuinely happy for her. How do you feel about it? Relieved, Lydia admitted, and excited. I've been thinking about what I want to do with my extra time. And, Lucas prompted. I want to establish a foundation, Lydia said, sitting up slightly in her enthusiasm. Focusing on support for single parents' childcare assistance, educational opportunities, medical support for children with chronic conditions like Emma's asthma. Lucas was touched by the way she had translated her love for them into a broader vision of help for others. That sounds amazing. You're amazing. Lydia smiled, then her expression turned more serious. There's something else I wanted to talk about. Lucas raised an eyebrow, noticing a sudden nervousness in her demeanor that was unusual. What is it? I've been looking at houses, Lydia said carefully. In neighborhoods with good schools, near parks with room for a family to grow. Lucas stilled, understanding the implication. Lydia, just listen, she said quickly. I know you value your independence. I know you've built this life for you and Emma through incredible hard work and sacrifice. I would never want to diminish that or take it away from you. She took his hands in hers, her gaze steady and sincere. What I'm proposing isn't charity or rescue, it's partnership, a life together, the three of us. A home where Emma can have a backyard to play in, where you don't have to worry about the roof leaking every time it rains, where we can build something beautiful together. Lucas felt emotion tightening his throat. The thought of giving Emma a more stable home, a yard to play in, better schools, it was everything he had worked toward. And the thought of building that life with Lydia by his side filled him with a joy he had thought lost forever. Are you asking what I think you're asking? He said finally, his voice rough with feeling. Lydia's smile was gentle but confident. Lucas Lawson, I love you. I love your strength, your integrity, your devotion to Emma. I love the man who carries his daughter through the rain without a second thought. I want to build a life with you if you'll have me. Will you marry me? Lucas was momentarily speechless, overwhelmed by the sincerity and love in her eyes. This accomplished, brilliant woman was choosing him not out of pity or fascination with the novelty of his different world, but with clear-eyed understanding of who he was. On one condition, he said finally, his voice steadying as he made his decision. Lydia raised an eyebrow, waiting. I'm keeping my job, Lucas said firmly. I won't be dependent, even on someone I love. I need to contribute to work with my hands to show Emma the value of hard work, just as you show her the value of ambition and vision. I wouldn't have it any other way, Lydia replied without hesitation. Your work ethic, your skill, they're part of who you are, part of what I love. Then yes, Lucas said, pulling her close. Yes, I'll marry you. Their kiss sealed the promise, a bridge between worlds that had seemed impossibly far apart that rainy night months ago. When they separated, Lucas rested his forehead against hers, overwhelmed by gratitude and love. There's one more person we need to ask, he murmured. Lydia nodded, understanding immediately. Tomorrow morning. The next morning, Emma sat between them at the kitchen table, looking from one to the other with curious eyes as they explained their hopes for the future. So we would all live together, Emma asked, processing the information. In a house with a yard. That's right, Lydia confirmed. If that's okay with you. Would I still go to my school? Would I still see my friends? Emma's practical questions revealed her priorities. We wouldn't move far, Lucas assured her. You could stay at your school if you want to, and we'd make sure you could still see your friends. Emma thought for a moment, then asked the question Lucas had been waiting for. Would Lydia be like, "My mom?" A hush fell over the table. Lucas met Lydia's eyes over Emma's head, seeing the emotion there. They had discussed this, knowing how important it was to honor Sarah's memory while embracing their new family structure. "I would be honored to be a mother to you, Emma," Lydia said gently. "But you already have a mom who loves you very much, even though she can't be here." "I would never try to replace her. I would be another person who loves you, who will always be there for you, who will help your dad take care of you." Emma nodded, seeming satisfied with this answer. "Like a bonus mom," Lydia smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Exactly like a bonus mom." Emma was quiet for a moment longer, then broke into a wide grin. "I think that would be really good. And can I have a frog pond in the yard?" Lucas laughed, relief and joy flooding through him. "We'll see about that, kiddo." 6 months later, under a clear spring sky, Lucas stood in the garden of the home. They now shared a comfortable house with a spacious yard in a neighborhood that balanced Lucas's desire for practicality with Lydia's wish for security and good schools. Emma danced around them in a flower girl dress, scattering petals in preparation for the small wedding ceremony that would begin in moments. The past months had brought adjustments for all of them. Lucas had accepted Lydia's proposal, but insisted on a prenuptial agreement that protected her assets. A decision she respected, though argued, was unnecessary. He had continued his construction work, now focusing on high-end renovations that utilized his craftsman's skills, while Lydia had successfully transitioned to her reduced role at Richmond Enterprises, finding unexpected fulfillment in her foundation work. Emma had blossomed in their new home, her health improving with better medical care, her confidence growing with the stability of their family unit. She had taken to calling Lydia bonus mom with pride, explaining the term to anyone who would listen. As guests, a small gathering of close friends and family, took their seats in the garden, Lucas felt a hand slip into his. He turned to find Lydia beside him, radiant in a simple ivory dress, her hair adorned with the wildflowers Emma had insisted on. Second thoughts. She asked with a smile that told him she already knew the answer. "Only about the frog pond Emma's still campaigning for," Lucas replied, squeezing her hand. "Never about us," Lydia laughed, the sound carrying across the garden. "I've already drawn up plans for a small water feature with appropriate amphibian habitat. Don't tell her, yet it's my wedding gift to her." Lucas shook his head in mock exasperation. "You spoil her." "I spoil both of you," Lydia corrected, her eyes soft with love. "And you both deserve it." As they took their places for the ceremony, Emma standing proudly between them, Lucas reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a rain-soaked night with a sleeping child in his arms to this sun-drenched garden where they would become a family officially, what they had been in their hearts for months. The officiant began the ceremony, but Lucas barely heard the words. His focus was entirely on Lydia's face as she spoke her vows, promising to love not just him but Emma as well, to honor Sarah's memory while creating their own story together. When it was his turn, Lucas spoke from the heart. "Lydia, you saw me at my most vulnerable, soaking wet, exhausted, carrying everything I cared about in my arms. You didn't see weakness, you saw strength. You didn't offer pity, you offered respect. You walked into our lives with grace and patience, never trying to replace what we had lost, but adding immeasurably to what we could become." He took her hands in his, aware of Emma beaming up at them both. "I promise to carry you through whatever storms life brings us, just as I carried Emma that night. I promise to build a home with you not just of wood and stone, but of love and trust. I promise to be your partner in all things, to respect your strength as you have respected mine, to love you completely for all the days of our lives." Tears glistened in Lydia's eyes as she squeezed his hands. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss was sealed with Emma's delighted applause and the cheers of their guests. The reception that followed was a joyful blend of worlds Lydia's corporate colleagues mingling with Lucas's construction friends. Emmer running between groups with the boundless energy of childhood. As evening fell, lights twinkled in the trees of their garden, casting a magical glow over the celebration. Lucas found a moment alone with Lydia as the party continued around them, pulling her into a quiet corner of the garden. "Happy?" he asked, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Completely," she replied, leaning into his touch. "You know, I've been thinking about the night we met." "In the rain," Lucas nodded, the memory vivid despite the months that had passed. "I was having the worst day," Lydia confessed. A major deal had fallen through. The board was questioning my leadership. I felt like a failure despite all my success. And then I saw you, carrying Emma through that downpour, and it put everything into perspective. Lucas listened, realizing there was more to their beginning than he had known. "You showed me what real strength looks like," Lydia continued. "Not corporate power or financial success, but the quiet courage of doing whatever it takes for someone you love. You changed my life that night, Lucas. You saved me as much as I helped you." Lucas pulled her close, overwhelmed by the beauty of their intertwined journeys. "We saved each other," he murmured against her hair. A small voice interrupted their moment. "Dad, bonus mom, it's time for cake." They turned to find Emma bouncing impatiently nearby, her flower girl dress now sporting several grass stains and a suspicious smudge of frosting. "We're coming, sweetheart," Lydia laughed, taking Emma's outstretched hand. As they followed their daughter back to the reception, Lucas felt a profound sense of completion. The circle that had begun in the rain that night had come full circle, bringing him not just shelter from the storm but a future brighter than he had dared to imagine. Emma tugged them forward, eager for cake and celebration, her joy infectious. Lydia's hand was warm in his, her wedding ring catching the light of the garden lanterns. And Lucas knew, with bone-deep certainty, that he would carry them both through whatever life brought next, not as a burden, but as the greatest privilege of his life. The rain that had once seemed an obstacle had been the beginning of their story, washing away old limitations to reveal the possibility of love that transcended expectations. From a father's protective instinct to a family's shared promise, they had built something beautiful, a home where courage and compassion lived side by side, where a child could flourish, and where two hearts that had once walked separate paths now beat as one.